I want to welcome you to our next presentation, which is called Living Your Best Encore Life. Go for it. And we're discover where you want to shine. Embrace the power of moving from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. Identify one fearless step you will take and become motivated to go for it. Doesn't that sound so great? So,
let me add my welcome. You heard this is the first ever in the nation age-friendly festival. We're in the midst of a longevity revolution globally. And in fact, Sarasota County, of larger counties, is the oldest demographically in the nation. So we should be leading, and we are leading. And you are all part of history today, and you're all pioneers participating in the Age-Friendly Festival. We are so fortunate to have, coming down from the Tampa Bay area, Donna Ripley. Donna is the founder and president of the Center of Career Transition. You can see on the back of the sheets Donna's extensive background. She's been seen on NBC, CBS, ABC, Fox affiliates. You're in for a real treat, and it's my pleasure to present Donna Ripley.
Thank you. Thank you. So, anytime you're a part of something that's a first in history, it's really exciting. So I'm excited to be here today, and I'm especially excited that you're here taking time out, giving yourself that gift of time to step back and think about your encore life. So I'm using the term encore life. Right now we're going through a kind of a languaging change in terms of that. We used to say retirement. What are you going to do in retirement? Now we have all kinds of phrases that we use. Your next chapter, your encore, your reinvention. Pretty much throughout the day I'll be using the term encore life. I think it expresses to me what it's all about, really going for that next big great thing, that great song that everybody wants to hear, kind of figuring out what that song is and going for it. So encore will be our word for today during this presentation. And your encore is like a blueprint because it's yours. It's that unique house that you're building. It's not anyone else's. So to figure that out, you've got to give yourself the gift of time, which you've started doing here today. The gift of time to turn inward and think about, what are your interests? What are your values? What really, really matters to you? What are you passionate about? What do you have fun doing? What are your responsibilities? So it's a lot of reflective work that you're going to do. And I'll build a little bit of the reflection into the session today because I want to get you to one action step. I would love to have everybody walk out of here today saying, this is what I'm going to do. This is one thing I'm going to do to kind of enrich my encore, or to start thinking about my encore. Maybe you're not even thinking about it yet, but to start thinking about it. I know with my encore, I started years ahead, and it kind of happened as it was just, I read an article in the paper, and that made it pop for me. So encores happen all different ways. But I knew it was a journey, so I got started on it ahead of time. So whether you're in your encore, thinking about your encore, you always want to step back and kind of be reflective. So there's lots of ways to get inspired about your encore. And one of my favorite ways is through stories, so we're going to have some stories today. And in those stories, I'm going to kind of highlight some of the brain research, but I'm not going to use that term. I'm going to keep it really, really simple because the coaching that I do comes from that. I like to know the fastest, most efficient way to get wherever we're going. So I kind of stick to that. But going for it means having an open mindset. Now, the difference in an open mindset, the opposite of that is a fixed mindset. So maybe when you're thinking about your encore and you're thinking about mindset, let me give you a few examples of a fixed mindset. A fixed mindset might be, I can't go to the gym. That's all jocks and young people there. A fixed mindset might be, it's too late for me to try to take my photography and make it a business. I would have to learn all the business practices and get into marketing, and that's too much. I can't do that. So that's your fixed mindset. That's when what happens when you use a fixed mindset is you stop that brain from popping. You shut it down, just like a director on a set yells cut. That's when you feed yourself that story, that's what happens with your mindset. So let me introduce you to someone. This is Kathy Davis. So Kathy Davis, I featured Kathy Davis. I love people's stories. I love to collect people's stories. Kathy was a teacher. Kathy was a high school art teacher. And Kathy would watch her students, and she said she was actually kind of jealous of them because every day, 5 days a week, they had time for art. They were doing something they really wanted to do, something they loved. They were doing art. She would have loved to have been doing art, but she thought, I'm artistically, I have some gifts, but I'm not talented enough to make a living with art. Okay, so there was her, what are we seeing? A fixed mindset right there. All right, well, let's see how Kathy kind of moves from that fixed mindset to the other side, to the growth mindset. So the growth mindset means you're opening up to possibilities. Kathy took a sabbatical due to the age of her children. And it turned out that during that sabbatical, she got divorced. Well, that's a real think about your life kind of time. So she was sitting at the table with her brother, you know, saying, I really want to do something with art. And he's like, you are now a single mom. You have to be responsible. You need a set, secure job where you have benefits. Kathy kept thinking, and she thought, okay, I can draw. I really do draw very well. I do calligraphy, and I write. She was an English teacher before she was an art teacher, so I love writing short little things, and people rave about the individualized Christmas cards I do for them. Maybe I can do something with that. So Kathy did what I think is a powerful, powerful next step. She got those three things. Her mind clicked them together and said greeting cards. You know, I could play a role in greeting cards, and I wouldn't have to give up my job. But I could indulge in art and really see where I can go with it. So she did the powerful step of getting a friend. When you're not quite brave enough, here's what I say, grab a friend. They actually crashed a greeting card trade show. Kathy ended up with a contract, her first contract as a result of that. So she now has a company that employs 25 designers. Her brother, the one that said, whoa, 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 he is her chief financial officer. That's probably my favorite part of that story. So Kathy today has a company called Scatterjoy. She's using her art, she's licensed, all kinds of licenses with all different home products along with the greeting cards. And it's really funny because not knowing, when I'm at Target at an aisle and I'm selecting a greeting card, I grab it and I look, and so many times it's hers. So she's there. She is living the life that she turned inward to see what should my life be. She did that kind of stop the fixed mindset, think about possibilities, and move forward. Okay, so here we have, I shouldn't have put these together because this is another teacher. Her name is Kathy Stevens. Kathy Stevens, another pivotal point, I kind of divorced was one. A pivotal point can also be a promotion. She was offered a promotion into a principalship. That made Kathy step back and say, do I really want to do this for the rest of my life? And that's a great question to ask yourself. Is this what I want in my life? You know, even if it's not like career, is this a piece of my life that I want to keep, or is this a piece of my life that I want to let go? So she did something that's powerful for people, and that I'm going to ask you to do today. She kind of moved back to her childhood. She had always had a love for animals, an affinity for animals. And so as an educator, she had that education piece. She enjoyed educating others. She formed the Catskill Animal Sanctuary, and she wanted to combine that education piece. So not only did they rescue farm animals, but they also have groups of people out to kind of learn about the animals and learn about what they can do to help in their communities. And Encores are ever evolving. So that's where Kathy ends in my book. As I checked back in, Kathy has now added the vegan aspect to the work that she's doing, and so she's promoting that in her work. Okay, this is, so just kind of see how these people are coming up with what they're coming up with by the way that they're reflecting and by the way that they're not adopting a fixed mindset. So this is Larry Harris. So Larry Harris, 6'5", big guy. He was a linebacker with the Atlanta Falcons. And then he went to the Houston Oilers. And then he went, he's an opera singer. He's an opera performer. And when Larry talks, his biggest piece of advice, because I ask all of them, what would you say to somebody who's considering making changes in their life? And his is, don't be afraid. Go for it. So he went back to his childhood. Music and singing was always in his childhood. While he was playing football, he would work on oil rigs in the off season to stay strong. He was out on a derrick one night singing to the stars, and he's like, this is what I can do. When football isn't there, this is what I can do. And he says he's more successful at opera than he ever was at football. Wow. So always have this, what is it I can do? I always love a plan B, no matter how happy you are and how wonderful life is. Just play around with stories on plan B too, so that you can, sometimes it opens up new horizons for you. This is Donna Sicilian. Donna had put on 50 pounds, and Donna had decided she was going to start running. So she was running some, and her hip got worse and worse and worse. Donna had to have hip surgery. So the fixed mindset would have been, I tried it, my hip got really bad, I'm done. Well, I'm here to tell you today that Donna does triathlons, and that she tries to pull me along each Sunday a little further and a little further. So, you know, so she moved from, Donna knew not to do the fixed thinking. Donna's a therapist, so she knew to let that one evolve and to let's see what I can do. Let's see how much movement I can. So she's currently a poster child for the hospital that did her hip surgery. Okay, this is Ruth. Can you tell what that is that her hand is on? I heard somebody say it. It's an old Singer sewing machine. Ruth, at 93, teaches sewing in her community to adults who are 18, as young as 18 to her age. Now, is that age friendly or what? I love that mixture of ages. I love that she's still so excited about what she's doing. So you know her mindset has stayed on the positive mindset side. She just makes sure that what she loves, she does. Helen Cargo. Helen is a trombone player. Helen just turned 100. Wow. And once a week, Helen goes to practice at the Pasadena South Community Band. South Pasadena Community Band. So my favorite story about Helen kind of fell into the trombone. She was here again, from a child, what was it you loved as a child? She was a piano player, and then a high school band director kind of was having a conversation with her and said, I have a trombone, and she's like, I'll try it. And Helen has pulled that trombone out, like it was always a thread in her life, but when her husband passed, her son said, I could really see then how important music was to her. It became more and more and more a part of her life. So it's kind of like a hands-on salute to the people that are out there, that are really going for it, like we're working on today, and that have made their Encore life a custom design life that kind of meets who they are and what they're all about. Because like I said, we're all different, and we all have different pathways, and we all have different things that we're trying to accomplish. So to get to your story, when I say my story, that's your story. I'm not standing up here telling you my story right now. To get to your story, I'd like to pose a new edition of your story, because you have your story right now as you're living it today. Let's see if we can create a little tiny piece of a new chapter to your story. So I'm going to ask you a question I'm going to ask you to just kind of share an answer with somebody close to you. Some of the seats are a little far away, but not too far. We can still do this. So you're going to find, I think there's 3 good places to kind of dig for things to give us some clues to who we are and what we're all about and get at our interests some. So the first one is a current time question. So I like to go to the past, I like to do current, and I like to go to the future. So I'm going to start with current. Think about a time when you were so engaged in something that you were doing that you lost all track of time. You looked up and you were kind of surprised that it was as late as it was. So give yourself a minute to think about that. And then when it comes to you, kind of signal somebody next to you with your eyes or whatever your signal method might be. And each of you share that. I forgot to introduce you to our come back to me signal, but I'm sure you've all put together that's our come back to me signal.
That also suggested
Okay, so now we'll go ahead and move on to the next question. Now I'm going to take you back. So get in your head for me, kind of move on back. Childhood, high school, college, early adulthood. What are some things that you loved to do then and wanted to do? You know, thought about, I'd love to do that. Either you did them, you engaged in them, or they were kind of dreams or aspirations of yours. Right, and so because we only have a short time today, I'm just going to ask you to share with the same person that you shared before. Normally I like to mix people all up and help you meet everybody, but okay, so childhood, some interests that you had, some things that you loved. Raise your hand if you're a partner that got ignored, didn't have your turn, so I can see if I'm moving you too fast. Okay. All right. Now, here's an important one, because this one to me gets at what you feel is your purpose. So, you know, many of us are looking at that question, you know, what is it we want to do here? What is it we want to accomplish? What are we all about? What is our purpose? What are we giving to this world? So I want you to move ahead. A lot of people do this, you know, end of your life. I want you to move ahead 5 years, just 5 years. That's not that far down the road. 5 years from now, if you were looking at me or talking to a friend and I said, what is it that you want to be sure? I want you to answer the question, what is it you want to be sure you have done within the next 5 years? Okay, so like if you're 5 years looking back, what is it you're so happy that you did? So, or the other way of looking at is, what would be a great thing that you would feel really good about for you to do in the next 5 years? So before I turn you to your partners, this time I'm going to ask you to be quiet for just a minute before you start talking to give that brain some time to engage. When you're ready, signal your partner and go ahead and share.
Even though we were terribly busy, we always had made time for each other and had fun.
All the partners taken care of? Anybody neglected? Okay, so now you have those things in your brain. They're things that are very personal to you, things that are your custom design Encore, or could be. But they'll stay right there inside you unless you do more with it. So the first doing more with it is actually what you did, making the story of it. Making that story stronger is the next step. Getting the vision of that stronger is the next step. And the way to really get a vision strong is creating an action step around it. But first I want you to think, is there anything you need to move from the fixed, connected with those things we've been talking about? Okay, you said some things you would love to do. Is there anything that you need to move from the fixed mindset to the growth mindset? And I call that reframing, going from the old frame to the new frame. So if you catch yourself doing it, say reframe. Just tell your partner very quickly, in order to do those things you've been talking about, or just one of those things, is there anything you need to reframe? Tell your partner. Okay, reframe. So I think I heard somebody say, I just caught just enough something about music or an instrument or something over here. Okay, so I might be in the state of mind of I don't have time to do that, or, you know, so how can I take that and change it to, you know, if I did it early in the morning, I could take some lessons. So is there anything that you kind of have to change your thinking on or reframe? So reframe is taking from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. Reframe is having a thought that kind of has some can't do in it and changing that to a can do. Okay, so how about, does anyone have an idea on that? Instead of doing partners, does anybody have a reframe that they feel they would be better off kind of pulling? All right, thank you for sharing.
Most of the things I love to do are sitting down. And I would like to see myself as an active person and really do that. Get out to walk, really get out the door to walk, get back into a water aerobics class, and get back to yoga classes. I mean, these are all things that in the past I have loved to do, and I just got bored or didn't want to go or had other things I would rather do. But I need to stop saying that everything I love to do is sitting down and find other things I love doing that are not sitting down.
I love it. Perfect example. Thank you very much. Okay, so now that you've experienced a reframe, you've done reflections, you all reflected on your own life. So reflections kind of create this imagination and possibilities, curiosity, and some motivation. But let's get them into action, because that was what I put in front of you. I said, I wanted you to leave here. I said you were going to leave here today with an action step. So sticking with that example, what is one action step you could take in the next 2 weeks? Doesn't have to be a giant one. You don't have to sign up for yoga and this and that. And an action step might be finding out where you would like to take yoga. So what would be an action step that would move you forward in what you want to do?
Taking a walk in my neighborhood 3 times a week.
Look how specific. Somebody's worked with action steps before, obviously. Okay, so her movement, her step that she's going to take, which is your turn right now and you're doing it, is taking a walk in her neighborhood, nice surrounding, 3 times a week. I'm going to ask you to put one more piece into that action step. So we're much more likely to do actions that we want to accomplish if we're accountable in some way. So there's lots of different ways to be accountable. For me, I have different levels of accountability I use, but I have one friend, if it's something I really, really want to get done, I know it's Lavana that I need to say, hold my feet to the fire, Lavana. I'm gonna email you when I've done each walk. I'm just gonna say walk 1, walk 2, walk 3. So you keep it easy on your accountability partner. So it might be a person that you ask for help with on accountability. It might be noted on your calendar. There's all different ways for accountability, but it does make a difference for a lot of people and what they accomplish if they build that accountability in. So I want you to think, don't you love that first step? I love that first step. See how fearless he is stepping out there? He doesn't really know what's going to happen, but he's making that step. So those things you've talked about today, come up with a step. You know, maybe it is just finding a piano teacher. If it was like, I'd love to do piano again. Maybe it's researching where's a piano I could use. But what's a first step that within 2 weeks, you will have accomplished it? I would love to say within, you know, next 1 week from today at noon, but I'm being generous with you. So within 2 weeks, and I want you to tell your partner, but I also want you to tell your partner how you're going to be accountable for that. So is it going to be emailing somebody? Is it going to be noting it on a calendar? Is it going to be an accountability buddy? All right. So let's have quiet for a minute to just think of what it is you want to take action on, and then what could that fearless first step of action be? And baby steps are good. Nothing wrong with baby steps. And then when you feel ready in your head, turn to your partner. Okay, if you didn't get finished with your partner, nab them outside the door when we're done. I really want to thank you for being here today, for being so willing to kind of turn inward and dig kind of into yourself and figure these things out about yourself and then share them with somebody. And just let me see, how many of you had a partner that came up, not you, how many of you had a partner that came up with an action plan and had accountability connected to it? Could I see a show of hands? Okay, it takes some thinking. How many of you are still kind of working on what the action could be to connect to the things that you talked about today? Yeah, okay. All right. It's a process and it is a journey, but it's a process and a journey that will reward you richly. You will end up living the life that is you and that authentic life to you, and that's really, really important. So thank you for all your time today. We are going to take some questions now.
If I could start, and then if I can, I'll come around and give you the mic. Donna, Encore is a national movement. Is there locally resources available?
Yes, so the closest one that I'm aware of is Encore Tampa Bay. So let me tell you just kind of quickly, Encore Tampa Bay has some different components to it. So one is their academy is what they call it. So through their academy, they offer some workshops, some discussion groups. It's based right now primarily in downtown St. Pete, but they do have some outreach things that they do. They also work with nonprofits to connect to the volunteer movement. So if part of your Encore is about volunteering, for instance, once a year they have a showcase where they invite the nonprofits in. The nonprofits talk about what kind of volunteers they need and what those roles look like and how people could be helpful. And actually you can sign up right then and there, but I like it because it's almost like getting a little taste of a lot of different things in a very efficient way. So another thing that they do is really work with businesses because for many people, part of their Encore involves the next career or part-time work or consultant work or something like that. So they're trying to make some connections for people in terms of career opportunities, be it flexible opportunities or regular opportunities. And then a really exciting new thing that Encore Tampa Bay has going on, a movement, is called Generation to Generation. So they are working with organizations that are serving needs of underserved children, children that need support and help, and they're connecting them with the Encore generation. So that's the current thing. So you can find their, just Google Encore Tampa Bay, and you'll get to their site.
Hi, how are you?
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you, Dandy.
I'm wondering if you could share your story.
Okay, sure. So my story, and I'll try to do it in a capsule here, is I was an administrator with the Pinellas County School District. I was educator. I was director of early childhood education, and I taught at 2 different universities. And part of my work was creating professional development. I had 800 teachers that I was responsible for their training, not only their classroom setup, but also their training. Well, training is evolving, and part of the evolution involved coaching. So I got involved in coaching in that way, very structured coaching, but coaching nonetheless. I also, on the DQ, was involved in a leadership team that was having a little bit of dysfunction. And so I'm reading the business section of the paper, and I'm reading a book review, and it's called The Art of Quiet Leadership. And I'm like, that's me. You know, I believe in quiet leadership. So I read the book, and when I got to the back cover, it talked about David Rock and his coaching school in New York. So I'm just like, I don't know why I was reading the business section, but somehow I landed with this book. I went to New York. I completed the coaching school. I wanted it so badly that part of the training was on site, but part of it was virtual. Well, phone, and so it was with people from Australia and New Zealand. So one of the courses originated in Australia. I was up at 2 a.m. on days that I was working on the next morning. I remember it well, it was the winter. I was huddled, and they did what they call spotlight coaching. So they had business people on, and you would coach them and get them to a certain point, and the instructor would say, okay, Donna, take it over. Okay, so, you know, it's like, oh, please don't ever let me fall asleep. I'm having a little trouble with the accent. Some of the words are used a little differently, but you know, when you really want something, you do it. And so that was my evolution, and I started then coaching people, and then I moved into really just some group work. I like working together with groups of people and kind of supporting them either through mentoring, helping organizations put a mentoring program, or helping people be who they want to be. So that's my story very quickly. You're welcome.
Okay.
All right, well, thank you. Best of luck in your encore. I know you'll do wonderful things.
Donna, we thank you so much.
You're welcome. My pleasure.